Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another episode of Newsround for Anfield Index. It is Monday, the 18th of August. It is early doors. It feels like, even though it's a Monday, it's the start of a pivotal week, doesn't it? In all honesty, ladies and gents, there should be a lot happening because there's only 2 weeks, literally, of the transfer window left. Liverpool, in 1 week's time, will go to Newcastle to contest the Alexander Isak derby at St James's Park. There's plenty of work, despite all the incomings, that still needs to be done both ways. I'm your host, Dave Davis, coming to you from... It's gone back to that muggy horribleness in Edinburgh. It's overcast, but it is muggy. You can feel it here as you speak. So hopefully the sun comes out or someone just turns on a dehumidifier somewhere. Hope it is nice in the world wherever you are. But what are we focusing on all related to Liverpool? Plenty of things. But I think it's fair to say at the moment, there's a lot of recurring themes, isn't there? Because big positive, obviously, the 4-2 win. That was absolutely great. What wasn't great? The goals given away, maybe the defensive structure, but whether it's systematic, new player, all the different bits, there's plenty that everyone's been over. And at 11 o'clock today, me and David Lynch, as well as talking transfers, of course, will be looking back on media matters to this game. But you think that Virgil's spoken about this, hasn't he, to say, you know, the emotions around Diogo Jota afterwards. You saw Mo's reaction to the cop at full time with the Jota song. So he's emotional. Arne Slot talked about it as well. So all those things goes into the hopper. And Alison Becker, as well as Arne Slot, talked about this to Jamie Carragher and to Gary Neville afterwards. Alison Becker was talking about it, the new signings, that it could easily be ignored. So this is just a couple of lines from Alison Becker late last night in the Echo. So I think it's hard. Not many people talk about the changes we had in the team. And it goes on for a bit, but just a couple of lines here. But having new players to come in and change it a lot. Today, we didn't have Ryan Gravenberch, who was a really important player for us and didn't play as well, but everybody did amazingly well. I think for them to play, for Jeremy, for Flo and for Hugo, playing for the first time in the Premier League, you have a physicality that's a little bit different, the intensity. But they showed up so well today. They played amazingly well. Of course, with our help, but they showed their qualities are at the standard of Liverpool Football Club. It's quite a big deal to put 4 players in the starting lineup, isn't it? And I thought those 4 players did really well, in all honesty. And just on that, we put it out late last night, very late last night. Me and Bart did a positional play on it. And we specifically looked at the team and the structure, but we also looked as well at the players and the new signings. And obviously, I'll just give you the highlights, a couple of things that stood out. Not the greatest day, funnily enough, out of them all, for Milos Kerkez, who has Premier League experience, only won 33% of his duels, always in for a tough ask against Antoine Semenyo, who scored a double and was absolutely brilliant for Bournemouth. But they did, target him aerially. They knew Semenyo could get the win with those long diagonals. He was a bit rash at times as well. So there'll be things for him to take from that, it's important to say. Jeremy Frimpong. Now, I've seen quite a few people saying Jeremy Frimpong, not really the best debut. Decent. And in fact, when he goes off at 60 minutes and Endos comes on at right back and Robbo comes on at left back for Kerkez, that's when it goes to the proverbial, doesn't it? A little bit. So just remember that. And also 2 key stats from Jeremy Frimpong that you should take away. He won 75% of his duels. And as Bart said, he stopped 100% of threat down his side. Wasn't always the cleanest, made a few fouls, but just keep that in mind. Hugo Ekitike, brilliant, as we said. Goal, assists, link up, everything he did. Even when he was trying things that didn't always come off. Deserved his look with the goal. And me and Bart's debated it, but I thought quite rightly, man of the match for this one. And then we'll leave it with Florian Wirtz, who, as we both said in summary, it was just too extreme, the reaction. There were plenty of positives, especially when you look at his passing and how he moved us forward into the final third a lot of the time. Yes, he has to get used to the physicality of the Premier League. I think that was quite quick. But for first showings for Liverpool, some mixed, let's file it under there, but plenty of positives, I would say, to really focus on. So, yeah, that was out late last night, if you do get a bit of time today. But transfer news, I have no doubt that is what you want to get into. And late last night, Fabrizio Romano tweeted, maybe surprising about the player and maybe surprising about the nature of the deal that's being talked about. So as it says there, Kostas Tsimikas' exit, of course, he wasn't with the team at all, was he, with the squad even, expected to accelerate as Liverpool could also be open to potential initial loan proposal. The left back is prepared to leave as Kirkes and Andy Robertson will be the left backs for Arne Slot. Now, I think this is crystal clear that Tsimikas is going to go. In fact, I'd expect something to be done this week, most likely. And it's a bit sad, but it's quite clear. You are third in the pecking order. You're not going to get a look in. It is what it is. Even for a guy, which is sad, who said it's Liverpool is the Broadway, I'd happy to play some minutes. It's not going to happen, is it? So where does he end up? And it was interesting when Paul Joyce first tweeted about this as it broke. He wasn't in that first squad at the Charity Shield. That Forest had asked earlier in the transfer window about the left back, and there's been more European and domestic interest. And he tweeted, Liverpool would only consider a permanent deal at this stage. Which makes you wonder, I'm not saying it's Fabrizio versus Joyce, but if there is truth in that, what Fabrizio's tweeting, what's changed? What's gone on they consider a loan? Because if there's multiple interest that way, it doesn't really make sense. I even saw a suggestion from a few that, it could be that, because Robbo goes for, sees it out for a year and then Kostas comes back. That doesn't really make sense because he's already telling Kostas he's below Robbo in the pecking order, isn't he? It just doesn't really make sense at all. And so you could both be right. It's a change in the picture possibly, but it just doesn't make sense. And it's interesting that Forest were mentioned. Well, another team, they did make a move for Rico Lewis, the City fullback, but Pep did say, as it came out late last night, I think he's going to stay. I think he told me that today. I think he's going to stay, but I don't know what's going to happen. Does sound like the mad ramblings of Pep, doesn't it? All round. But if you take that into play, that City and Forest were trying for City's Lewis, and he's not on the agenda. Does Kostas Tsimikas come back onto it? But alone, we know Forest, we know what they're spending. I'm not sure we'd accept a loan unless it was with an obligation. So that's an exit we expect, isn't it? Interesting. Speaking of exits as well, yesterday afternoon, Paul Gorse did tweet, or put it in his article as well, that Ben Doak, as he put it, is putting the finishing touches to his move to Bournemouth in a £25 million deal. So that's another exit we're expecting. Probably that's going to be announced before Tsimikas, isn't it? And no offence to Ben Doak, all the pace in the world. I think somewhere like Bournemouth is a great move for him because he's not going to get a single minute, is he, at Liverpool? Even young Rio Ngamoa stepped in the pecking order ahead of him. He's not got a single minute yet as well. Chiesa, as we mentioned yesterday, looks like that might be the full 360 of the summer, isn't it? Of all the stories, that he looks like he could well be staying as well. So a great move for Ben Doak. And because when we spent 600 grand or gave that to Celtic and we'd be fetching in 25 million for a player who's played minimal, tiny minutes in the Premier League. I actually had to look him up back at Chelsea under Klopp, etc. That just a great deal all round. Really is. So yeah, exits galore for you there. Now, I'll put this man on the screen, the GOAT, Indy Callier, and people will go, like Marc, forget that. David Ornstein's verified this. David Ornstein's been talking on pods about this account now and how good it is. And by the way, in case you think it's any different, Indy had the Ben Doak news before anyone else to Bournemouth. a good few days before that broke. Just be crystal clear on that. And Indy tweeted yesterday, just after 4, Liverpool to submit a new bid for Marc Guehi. The player is very keen to leave. Now, it's a bit weird with Palace, wasn't it? Because, well, maybe not too weird. Eze was in the squad. That surprised people. Guehi in the squad maybe didn't surprise people. But Glasner put them both in. And Glasner was quite bullish yesterday as well when he was spoken to. And saying, the mindset was very good. Otherwise, he wouldn't start. I mentioned the press conference before the game. Marc and Ebbs really trained well the whole week. And of course, there's no reason not to start him. Good advice to all the children watching us. Don't believe everything you read in the newspaper. And as the article mentioned, Steve Parish has those lines. For players of that caliber to leave on a free, it's a problem for a football club. There is no doubt about it, unfortunately. I think everyone knows Palace want to do a deal with Liverpool. We're just almost in that Mexican standoff, aren't they? Because they've got an amount they want. We've got an amount we're not prepared to pay above because we know we can get him for free in a year's time. But the player... Now, it's funny because the player, all that talk that he said he would be happy to see out his year, that was where it was previously. Did anyone catch this yesterday? Roy Keane and the Sky Sports pundits were talking about it afterwards, but I can't play you the video annoyingly as we'll get, shut down by Sky, which is so annoying because it's just free coverage from them with their branding, but that's a different thing. After the game, he goes to the Palace fans, but he walks off and Glasner tries to get clearly shouting Guehi, and he just doesn't respond at all, just completely ignores him. And in fact, Glasner then starts to talk towards like Mateta and go, what's wrong with him type of thing. And, Mateta looks a bit surprised with it as well. Don't know, you could be reading too much into it, couldn't we? But if it is such a happy camp, and Marc Guehi, who's obviously standard from what we've seen, a cool, calm, collected character, there might be nothing in this, don't get me wrong, but it is a little bit strange, isn't it? I would be very surprised right now, saying it, if something doesn't happen this week with Marc Guehi. I really would. Liverpool, this one, Ibrahima Konate, Ben Jacobs tweeted this a few days ago. They're in active talks, nothing agreed yet, but Liverpool are trying for an extension. The dialogue continues. I mean, he didn't have a good first game, Ibu, did he? I think you can read too much into it, but he didn't have a good first game. That one where he just kept backing up for the second goal. I mean, it looks horrendous, doesn't it? Does look like that New Order video where they're all running back. It's just horrendous, honestly, what you're seeing. And you're thinking, why does he keep... Horrendous is too strong, don't get me wrong. But it wasn't a good game from Konate. And that has naturally thrown things into the mix, like fans saying, he's got to go, sell him now. We've got to get Guehi in as soon as possible. For me, I think you've got to get this done. You can't sort of just leave it, especially because we want to compete on all fronts. But from what we're hearing at Anfield Index, it might not be too positive around the developments for Konate. And it's something me and Trev will be talking about on the transfer show later as well. So, yeah, I just think they want to sell, as Steve Parish has said. Maybe there's something there with Glasner and Guehi. Guehi, I think, as all the reports suggest, wants to come to Liverpool. Just get this done. Suppose it is somewhere that could go up to 40 million. Well, you've got a player who comes straight through the door who's worth more than that. Yeah? I just think this is kicking on far too long, personally, now. Now, speaking of something that is kicking on too long, the Alexander Isak saga. I do wonder, when do Liverpool put an end to this? Either way. Because there's 2 weeks today left of the transfer window. Now, yes, even if you signed him right this second, the earliest he'd be fit to even probably get on the bench is Arsenal in 2 weeks' time, isn't it? Newcastle, they're not going to allow it all before then. But, and I get it's probably easy to say. Of course, he's probably not going to sign before that game Monday. But when do Liverpool put a sort of end on it to say, if he's not in by this, we need to switch to other targets. Because Arne Slot has talked about needing forwards, hasn't he? It is just something that, when I say, I think developments on this, I don't expect the player to be in, but in terms of hearing moves, the second bid, all that starting up, I'd be surprised if we hear nothing, because, time is really ticking in this window. Eddie Howe as well after the game. I mean, before we talk Eddie Howe, did you hear the Newcastle fans serenading with the only one greedy bastard? That was going out, wasn't it? And their manager spoke afterwards to say the door is well and truly open when speaking about his future, but he needs to decide what he wants to do. We'd like a resolution. We need that clarity. I'm not in control of it, but only one person is. I've made my stance pretty clear. There's some truth and there's some nonsense in that, just to be clear. I bet he would like a resolution. He would like clarity. And I bet he has made his stance pretty clear to the Newcastle powers that be, that let's move on, let's get a fee, let me get players in. I would have little to no doubt of that. I'm not in control of it. Only one person is. Well, that's not true, because Alexander Isak wants to move and he's not in control of all that. Also, at the same time, this punditry nonsense about Eddie Howe, he's done such a great job and everything under this. Eddie Howe forced Paul Mitchell out the football club. Eddie Howe has put his nephew in charge of transfers. Eddie Howe and Newcastle are doing exactly the same with Johan Visser. It's the sheer hypocrisy of all this. It's all because, I'm telling you this, Eddie Howe is the next one earmarked for an England job. It is. That's why everyone like the Nevilles, etc., are fawning over him so hard. It is just absolute nonsense that's coming in. It really is. But I do expect it to be quite an important week. I wouldn't be surprised as well if we hear more around another attacker. Genuinely wouldn't. I do think there will be a lot going on this week for Liverpool. Defenders, outs, attackers, maybe outs. We need ins in both sides as well. There is so much to happen. There is 1 week until the Newcastle game. There is an awful lot for Liverpool to sort. So with that in mind, on Monday, the 18th of August, that was another news round for Anfield Index.